So we're ready to bring in our support. So let's go assembly, insert component this time. Again, you're going to kind of decide what your favorite is, and that will probably be the one you use most often, but just being aware that the others are available is handy. So one of the things that we can do to check for our center to centers alignment is to control select the inside cylinder and the outside cylinder. And what this does by aligning to the pins, if all of a sudden there's a mismatch, maybe we changed a dimension, something happened, we really want it to generate that error to let us know that something changed, that we're now in a misalignment. So selecting the two faces, making them coincident, and we can see what that looks like. So the other thing I noticed is on a manufacturing side is these squares aren't really necessary. To a certain extent, they're stress risers, but I don't think we're putting that much load on this that it's that much of a concern. But from a manufacturing standpoint, if I had radiuses in there, I could lay this down, clamp it, and run an end mill. And I always say round tools don't cut square corners or square holes. So we really would like to have that radius in there to be able to aid in the manufacturing. So go back to Control 7, isometric, hold down the control button, grab another instance of the support, select. I can see both of them there, so we'll stay in that view. So select Control Select and concentric, and non-rotating doesn't matter. All right, so I was getting ready to grab the face, but that's not going to help me with the alignment. I could make it parallel, but I kind of reserve parallel as something that, since I don't use it very often, it's usually note, like setting a note that, oops, I clicked out of it, to be kind of a flag that something is going on with the model at that point. All right, so insert component, existing, browse. We'll pick up the rod, put it in position, and then this one, when I go concentric, I do not want it to rotate, so I can't tell if it picked it up or not. But apparently I missed another dimension, or was so since that one's not grayed in, we will go back and lock rotation, so I hit it one too many times. So let's go through so the rod, 8 millimeters. And let's see if I can find that edge. There we go. So diameter of 8 millimeters, which means that I put a 10 millimeter hole. And so on the support, if we go back and find the 10 millimeter hole, there is such a thing as editing in context, and you again want to be careful, be aware of what you're doing. That okay, we will save. So P5-17 slider. Yeah, we'll go that way. All right, so now we're going to see, should be a few things go transparent, but it also depends on what they set up 2021 to do. So I changed that to 8 millimeters, position, everything else is okay. So you notice that all of the rest are still in dark, while the support is in the bright blue. That says that it's being edited at the part level, but we're doing it out of the assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And that gets us back into our assembly mode to where I can select the faces, and go to the coincident to apply the rod. All right, so another insert component, and this one is going to be the slider. And select, control, select, concentric. Since this has the ability to rotate, it's moving. We've basically constrained 1 degree of, well, 2 degrees of freedom. It can't move up and down, and it can't move side to side, but it can rotate and move back and forth. So probably would look at, well, let's see what happens. I would probably look at making it parallel, either parallel to the plane. But if we go into the component and bring in the, so hopefully this is named correctly, the pin slider. Nope, that was the big one. We already had it. And I guess we can always go back and check here. I lost it. All right, so just the standard pins. So it looks like just one of the standard pins. Nothing nothing special there. So since we're in the insert, we'll place, do the select, control, select. So this one only has a little bit. So if we make it concentric, should probably check for the depth. Yeah, we'll just go with the edge and the bottom face coincident. If we need to, we'll just lock the rotation. I don't know that it will help or hurt at this point, but right-click, lock rotation, and then if we go to the connecting to the arm and to the pin, those go in place. And then alignment-wise, we've got more movement on that side than we do on this side. So if I was to pick one, I would probably go coincident there to keep the clearance. Well, those actually evened up, so they're at the same height. So we could leave them at the same height, but also keep in mind that once we've applied that that dimension, or the coincident. I was looking for a dimension that I hadn't created yet. I can right-click and edit the feature. So again, that is right-clicking the very top left, edit feature. And then instead of coincident, I want it to be a distance, and I'm going to send it 1 millimeter. And then if I flip the dimension, it goes up, and then otherwise it goes down. So let's see what that looks like. So a little bit higher on that one, actually quite a bit. So if I come back down here and pick it, see what our increment, well, 10 millimeters is a little much, so 2 millimeters. All right, so looking like there was more travel. It kind of tricked me there. So that puts us into our finished assembly. So I want to hit save. And then what would be the interesting static assembly here? So if I was to pick this arm and maybe the front plane of the assembly and make them parallel, that would be kind of interesting. And what that would do for me is, if I, in the drawing, wanted to show an alternate position, and let's see, is that flip? Yeah, I don't think I wanted to do that, so let's just Control Z. I will suppress this and bring it around, and then let's see what happens if we unsuppress. Okay, so one of the challenges of the assembly is dealing with these mates and how everything interacts with each other, and sometimes there are going to just be some weird results. All right, so on the default, I'm going to come up to the very top, add a configuration, and make the dynamic. So I want one configuration that is stable. It's not going to move. Anything that I apply um, in the assembly is going to be stationary. And then if I were to bring this in as a subassembly in a higher level, connecting motors, seeing what this drives, what this is actually producing, then in the dynamic we can go back to that parallel and keep in mind that the mates under each of the parts are just for that one. Since I know it's the last, I can come down to the mates and I'll suppress it in this configuration. So one thing to watch out for is since I did not put since I made it parallel on the arm, I did not put like a discrete mate on to control this. So if I bring it over here and then switch back to the default, it's going to go to the closest point. All right, so maybe I would need to align the front plane of the drive wheel parallel or coincident to the front plane of the assembly, so that it would always at least try and stay in that position. So even then, if it moves and it gets out and can find a solution that's closer, that's probably what it's going to do. All right, so we are ready for an exploded view, right? And that's going to take place under the static. And really, even if it shifts position in the drawing, it's easy enough to correct. Or that we could shift that position pretty easily. But even if it were to change position, I don't know that we'd really notice it that much in the drawing side. So I want to create a exploded view assembly, and we can go that route, or right click on the configuration we're adding it to, do a new exploded view, and then we're going to need to pick our components. So let's see, auto spacing is turned on. I'm going to do this one singly. Last time we grabbed pretty much everything and let it auto space. So if I grab one piece and drag it up, then let's see, I grabbed the pin, that pulled it out. I wasn't quite ready, so we're going to just do a select the done. And then I got to get into that habit every time I use the explode view that on the mouse button you have that little return, the done on the right mouse. So I can select it, and as long as I don't get out of the command, I'm going to be able to get into that workflow that pulls these out. And then let's trying to think of an interesting way for this to go, since we pretty much everything would be pulled up, but we can also do combinations. So I got the slider, and then to move in a little bit and make sure it gets the slider pin, so we can bring that out in Z. Looks like it, looks like it grabbed. So let's see if I clear the selection. Nope, doesn't look like it's going to give it to me, so I'm just going to clear everything out and try and pick again. And the problem with being that far out is since the Y arrow is right there, it probably is thinking I'm picking the Y. So I'll bring this out a little ways, and then we'll go ahead and click for the done. I lost the little arrow. If I hit OK, that's going to finish the explode, and then I would have to get back into it. So that's not a too bad. It's just kind of annoying. All right, so we'll go ahead and click done. grab the two supports and we'll drag them out. All right, so pretty much whatever makes sense. Let's go ahead and hit OK. All right, so this time I hit OK and did what I expected it to do. Kicked us out of that explode. We do not want to go back into the explode command because, well, this one's already existing. And I can always right click on it and edit feature. If I keep adding explodes, it goes back to the start. And we don't really want to start over. So pin, 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 and pin. And then we'll just drag those out some distance and see what it looks like. Okay, so now when we hit OK, got some interesting pieces. Could work on the spacing a little bit, but I think we're okay. And then keep in mind, again, that you do not have to create a separate file for explode. And in effect, it's counterproductive to create a second file. Mainly because if anything changes in this one, you're going to have to change it in the other one, and then it's going to collapse, and it really doesn't do anything for you. So explode, collapse, explode, collapse. And we'll save it. And I believe at this point we're ready to go over to the drawing.